Hello, my name is Jamie J, and I'm doing a special edition of Live with Bottleneck. A lot of people have been asking me how, with everybody doing work remotely or distributed workforces, how are we keeping people safe, secure, preventing cyber threats? So I got the best person in the entire world, my good friend Morgan Wright, who's going to join us and help us solve this issue, or at least help us kind of prepare for it and do everything we can. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and get this thing kicked off in 38 seconds. We'll see you soon. All right, welcome to Live with Bottleneck. My name is Jamie J. I'm the CEO and founder of Bottleneck Virtual Assistants, but that's not why we're here today. Today, we're going to help you stop the bottleneck in your business. With this whole COVID thing happening, there's a lot of cyber threats, these flipping people taking advantage of what's going on right now. And I wanted to introduce you to a good friend of mine. His name is Morgan Wright, and we're going to be talking about the remote work cyber threats that are increasing and how we can kind of alleviate a lot of those challenges. Really quickly, Morgan Wright is an internationally recognized expert on cybersecurity strategy, cyberterrorism, identity theft, and privacy. His landmark testimony before Congress on Healthcare.gov changed how the government collected personally identifiable information. He's made hundreds of appearances on national news. I'm going to even ask him, he might be over 1,000 now. Radio, print, and web have spoken to audiences around the world. Previously, Morgan was a senior advisor to the U.S. State Department Antiterrorism Assistance Program and senior law enforcement advisor for the 2012 Republican National Convention. In addition to 18 years in state and local law enforcement, Morgan has developed solutions in defense, justice, and intelligence for the largest technology companies in the world. So I just want to let you know, Morgan is extremely qualified to be talking about what we're doing today. And without any further ado, please welcome my good friend, Morgan Wright. How are you, sir?
Sir, as they say in the British Empire, sir.
Hello, sir.
Sir.
Cheerio.
Help me up against the wall, scrape me off with a putty knife, sir.
So how are you doing?
I don't know. Day's not over yet. That's a forward-looking statement subject to rules and regulations of the Security and Exchange Commission. And by the way, if the power goes out, if you see this thing go dark, it's either the Russians or the Chinese trying to take me off the air again, or we have a wicked big storm coming in, part of the hurricane stuff. So it's getting dark, and we've been getting warnings on a regular basis. So if I go dark, folks, no offense, I do like Jamie, but if I punch out, it's electrical.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for the update. I just got a message here from Nancy Summer. Says this is a fabulous topic. By the way, if anybody's here listening, you have a question for Morgan, please ask away. I am not joking you. He knows his stuff.
Allegedly. Let's not
allegedly.
Expectations low.
I can say that. But yeah, Morgan, for those people that may not know who you are, which is kind of hard to believe, I wonder if maybe you can tell us a little bit about you and a little bit of background.
Little farm boy from Kansas. Originally, dad was military, lived around the world, grew up. My first language was Farsi. I grew up in Iran during the days of the Shah, so kind of came back to the U.S., back to Kansas. I was born at a military base, Fort Riley, ended up there, went into law enforcement for 18 years, state trooper, detective. And then I started doing some fun stuff. I got to start teaching behavior analysis. I worked, was trained by the original members of the FBI's behavioral support, the BSU, Behavioral Sciences Unit. And so that's something I've always kind of done, but I did a lot of work in technology. But right after I came out here right after 9/11 in Virginia, right before I was in Columbia, working on Plan Columbia, right after 9/11, a lot of stuff, on that side of the house. So, but, was at Cisco, Bearing Point, KPMG Consulting. My last corporate job was Bell Labs, Alcatel-Lucent. I haven't been employable since January 30th, 2012, when I had to lay off my whole team. So, and in between time, I do a lot of stuff for the media. In fact, Jamie, we were talking about being on. I've done my first sessions now with the British media. I've been on the BBC, the Times Radio, Sky News. So been doing a lot of the British folks lately, and just having.
Have you eclipsed the 1,000 appearances yet?
No, I'm probably around 700, I think.
Wow. That's not too shabby.
It's all making up. All you do is if you just believe, if you just act like you believe what you're talking about, very few people question you. So
yeah,
very forceful.
You kind of do know what you're talking about, and thank you so much for jumping on today. This is Nancy Summers says, I'm a former cyber crime victims having been targeted. So this is deeply important to me what's going on now.
So let me it's obviously Nancy is a woman. And by the way, romance scams, while they may only rank in the top number 10 in terms of all the cybercrime, they rank number 2 in the amount of money lost. Number 1 target of romance scams are women by a factor of like 85% to 15%. So this is something very real. It's very big. Romance scams targeting people on identity theft. So yeah, Nancy, sorry to hear that, but hopefully we'll give you, I have a couple freebies and some things we'll talk about too to arm you with some tools to fight back.
Yeah, this is fantastic. So one of the challenges that this was probably 3rd or 4th in line with the number of questions, but I don't think I've ever done a consultation without this question being asked. Someone's going to be working remotely for me. How do I make sure that I'm protected, that my information isn't going to be out there and stuff like that? And I'm wondering, this is a extremely wide topic, but I wonder if maybe you can kind of start maybe giving us some advice on it.
So first of all, this will tie into it. I'm a huge Notre Dame fan. Go Irish. We'll see if we're football this year. What's the first thing that Vince Lombardi did after the Packers won the very first Super Bowl? How did he start spring training? He basically took the football, held it up and goes, gentlemen, this is the football. Basics. Everything is about basics. I will tell you right now, if folks will do some of the basic things, you can eliminate 90 to 95% of the threat out there. And I'm going to give you a couple ideas too, because passwords are not what you think they are. And they're not used the way they ought to be used. But there's some
Morgan, letting you know, Nancy replied back. She said, yep, you've got it. It went on for over 2 years. Government stepped in and helped me, but it involved a person stalking over the top. Can happen to anybody.
Yes, it absolutely can. And look, this is one of the things too cyberspace has allowed us to do is to actually learn a lot about people, because we post a lot of stuff online, and unless you know what you're looking for and you can see the signs, a lot of people will, it's like catfishing. You think you're talking to a man, but you're actually talking to a woman, or you think you're talking to a woman, you're actually talking to a man. Speaking to the Irish, that's what happened to Manti Te'o. He had a girlfriend for 2 years or so. He thought it was a guy. It was a dude. So let's go back to the basics. So some things you can do is if you own, no matter whether it's a phone, whether it's, I've got a nice iPad Pro back here. I've got my MacBook Pro. I'm on Mac. No matter what you have, if it's mobile, if it can fit in your hand, if it sits on your desktop, encrypt it. Everything should be encrypted. You can turn on your encryption. If you don't know how to do it, very easily go in there. If you're on Microsoft, if you're on Apple, there are easy ways to encrypt all of your data. So number 1, encrypt everything. Encrypt data in motion. We'll talk about a VPN in a second. And encrypt data at rest. If you do that, you now protect yourself. Second thing you do, if you're working from home, and here's an idea for some of you folks, you never do work on your personal computer, never do personal work on your work computer. So you got to keep those things separate. One of the ways to keep those separate is in your router, and mine is hiding over here. I have fiber to the home. In fact, you can kind of see it right back there. That's the Verizon one. You have the ability to create a guest network. So you should create a guest network, and you should operate off that guest network for work and keep your personal stuff on your personal stuff. This is where your TV's hooked up to. This is your personal email with your kids, your wife, whatever it might be. Create a separate network to operate off of. Now, is it perfect? No, but it's better than having everything on here. And if you're one of those people that has this compulsion, you feel the need to hook your freaking refrigerator up to the internet just because you can, you definitely need to have a separate network for business and a separate network for personal. Third thing, and this is the freebie here, Jamie, freepasswordcourse.com. That's one word, freepasswordcourse.com. I will teach you how to use and create long, complex passwords, and you'll never have to write anything down again. I have probably 60, 70 different passwords I use. If the FBI raided my house today, you would not find a single password of mine written down anywhere. So it's all about creating a structure about how you do passwords and how you approach them. And by the way, this fiction of having to change your passwords every 30 days, the only thing it does is ensure that the next password is weaker than the previous one. And then the next password after that one is weaker than the previous two. Because if your password is password 123, then it's password 1234 or password 123. Oh, there's Siri. Yeah. I'm waving my hands around too much, and every now and then Siri pops up on my iPhone. So, but I'm telling you, Jamie, and the other thing too, quit clicking links if you don't know for sure where they came from and what they are. This is the number one way folks get ransomware, is that they click on links either on a web page or in their email. By the way, folks, I will tell you right now, there has never been a person in the history of the internet, since it's been around for 25 years now, that has ever actually gotten any money from a Nigerian prince where it says reply to this email or click here. Show me one person who's made $1 million by clicking a link from somebody in Nigeria. I would like to see that. I would pay money to see it. So, these are basic things. It's just quit clicking links, quit being the bait, encrypt everything. And by the way, there's free stuff out there like Proton. It's called a Proton VPN, Proton Mail. You can use a VPN if you're in a Starbucks, if you're out in the wild somewhere. Just encrypt your connection over the wireless. Don't expose your credentials, your login information, things like that. So if you just do basic stuff like that, whether you're at work or you're at home, I guarantee you right now, you will become a much harder target. Think of it this way. You're walking down the street and you see a house that has the front door open, the windows are open, the garage door is open, and the car's obviously not there. Somebody home, you bet. What you want to do is you want to harden the target a little bit. Close the doors, close your blinds, close your windows. If you got a dog, you got bars on the windows. But you make it difficult, they will go to an easier target. These folks are looking for people who don't patch their systems. If you don't update your software, you got to do just simple stuff. Really, it's really the basics, 5 or 6 things, and you become a huge, hard target.
Nancy asked a pretty good question. How dangerous is Alexa and connected houses for listening in on you?
My Alexa is unplugged, sitting over here on my desk in a rack where it's been for a year now. I don't try. I tell you what, I do it only because when I got them, I was testing it out and wanted to see what things you could do, things like that. Here's the thing. I was moderating a panel for the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, one time. And I had some really smart people on there, far smarter than me. And one of them was a lawyer from the NSA and stuff. I said, who do you fear more? Do you fear the FBI, the NSA, and the CIA? Or do you fear Google, Amazon, and Netflix? Anybody like that, who's ever out there harvesting information? I'm telling you, Google, Amazon, Facebook, folks like that collect far more information. And here's a test. You can find out how much Alexa is actually listening to you. Sit around Alexa sometime and talk about a very obscure product that you've never, don't search for it on your computer. Don't just obscure product. Talk about green yard spinners. Green yard spinners. I'm going to say that like green yard spinners 3 times. I guarantee you somewhere on your Facebook or your search results, this stuff's going to start popping up. So yeah, if you use it for convenience, caveat emptor. Just be aware that it is buffering and recording information. Now, Amazon will tell you we don't actually keep all of that, or you can like with Microsoft, with their assistant, you can say, hey, you can send this information off to us. We translate it. The same thing Apple does, only for quality control. If it's free, then you're the product.
Yep, I agree. These are all super, super important things. And it seems like the other day, Sarah and I were trying to figure out how to put VPN on the iPad. And it was a little challenging because, and I'm somewhat tech savvy, but not really. And so it's really hard for us to figure out how to kind of put some of this stuff on there. But in all actuality, it doesn't really take that long.
There it is right there. Proton VPN. I mean, that's what we're just talking about there. I use it. You download it. You got to just follow a couple prompts to change it. You have to allow it to create a profile on your phone. But here's the thing. You can either spend 5 minutes figuring it out, or wait until your computer gets hacked, your phone gets hacked. And by the way, it takes an average. And if you try and do this yourself, it takes an average of 500 hours to recover from identity theft in the United States if you try and do it yourself. So 5 minutes versus 500 hours, you make the call.
I'm definitely for that. I think it's great. You have to get that set up. And now with everybody going from some kind of a central environment office to now their private residence. Yes, Nancy, it was called Proton VPN. Is that correct?
Proton, like proton and neutrons. Proton VPN. It's free. There's a free service you can use, and if you want to upgrade and pay for that, you can do that too. But right now during COVID, I had 42 trips lined up this year, and they all got canceled. So I'm not going anywhere. So I don't have the need for that. But now I will tell you, if you work for a company, one of the things companies have to be careful of, if you're an IT in a company, you're the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer. Most of you already know this, but there is a danger in using a VPN for everything. It actually adds a lot of overhead. So you don't have to use a VPN many times if you're connecting to your bank, because using a VPN at home sometimes is kind of redundant, because if you're on an encrypted network, you're going to be pretty good there. But these banking apps or other apps, if they have HTTPS, a lot of that is already being taken care of, or TLS, transport layer security, that's already being taken care of. So if you're in a company, if you're in a small company, think about using a VPN, but don't think that you have to use it all the time for everything. It's really, if you're out on the road or if you're out in public and you're connecting over a untrusted wireless network, you definitely want to do that. But as a standard rule, if you're in a bigger company, they have a lot of these things figured out because they're connecting to the cloud, and the cloud actually has a lot of built-in security. So you don't have to do it. But if you're like me, a solo operation, or like you, Jamie, definitely having a VPN when you're out and about, and especially if you're accessing banking information, doing anything very sensitive, that's when I would definitely make sure I use a VPN.
I have a question from Brian Ledesma, and I'm not too sure about this, but he goes, "What do you all think about algorithm?"
I got rhythm. No, that was a song, but we got to be a little bit. Hey, Brian, can you give us a little bit more context, because you could use an algorithm in a lot of things, for predictive, for artificial intelligence, machine learning. So can you give us, as we talk a little bit, just give us a little bit more in context of algorithm, in context of. Thank you, Nancy. We'll see you.
Yep. Thank you, Nancy. A little bit more contact, Brian. And then Ben Clements, he goes, "Do you recommend using a hardware firewall on a home network?"
Good question, Ben. It depends on what you're doing and who you work for. So when I worked for Cisco, I actually had this is actually the office I've been in since 2004. I've been working out of my home since 2004. We actually had hardware, because Cisco is a big enough company. We actually had a hardware VPN that had a lot of stuff built in. But most of the time, if you're on a Mac, you can actually turn on the firewall inside your settings. If you're on a PC, I can't think of which the name of it was in there, but yeah, if you're on there, you can turn on a software firewall. In fact, actually, a lot of these things, you don't have hardware anymore. You basically have what they call SDN, software-defined networking. So a lot of this is going to software. And I would prefer software over hardware for a couple reasons. Number one, it's easier to update. It's easier to configure. You don't have to be an engineer to try and configure a hardware router. And second of all, from a hardware standpoint, it's another thing you have to plug in, another thing that heats up the office. Like when I close my doors here, it starts getting, the temperature starts going up in the room. So anything to conserve energy, to reduce heat, I've had no issues using software firewalls for years.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Ben actually works with us, so that's good to know. So I had a question.
All right.
What is the difference between working off of Wi-Fi or working hardwired? And is there any better case scenario? Is there any security benefits to that?
So here's an insider thing. So this iMac that I'm on, I have two 27-inch screens. I've got my primary iMac, and I have a 27-inch screen next to it. And it actually has an Ethernet port built in here. At least I know on a Mac, and I think you can do it on a PC as well. I actually have it set up to where my main connectivity is off of the Ethernet cable. It goes to my router, so I'm always hardwired for two reasons. Number one, if the Wi-Fi hiccups, I do a lot of webinars for the Center for Digital Government. and for Sentinel-1. So I don't want a hiccup on Wi-Fi. So I can actually use the Ethernet, but at the same time, I've got Wi-Fi as well enabled. So I actually have 2 IP addresses I'm running. One is for the wireless and one is for the wired. And for my wireless, that allows me then to connect to, other machines, or I can remote back into mine, from here in the living room. I can just do things wirelessly or access things that require a wireless connection, like my brand new LaserJet back here. I got that about 3 weeks ago. Love it. Won't do an inkjet anymore. I know it's going to be a little more expensive for the cartridges, but man, I was showing you the stuff I was working on, Jamie. When I got to print out stuff, I don't want to wait 19 days for this stuff to print out, So, but if you want to be mobile, you can absolutely do that. But if you want a little bit extra security, or you just want to make sure you've got that performance, I do both. I connect a hardwire on the Ethernet, and then I also use wireless for everything else, like printers and things like that.
That's really neat. So is there anything right now, any trends that are happening? Before we wrap up here, I want to respect your time, but are there any trends happening right now that maybe you can share with us for us to kind of be on the lookout for? And then the second question on that is, if I'm kind of an entrepreneur, a 1, maybe 2-person operation that is outsourcing some of my work, what are some things that I can do over and beyond what you've shared with us so far right now that would say, okay, I know I can't be 100%, but if I do this, this, and this, I'm going to be in the best position possible?
Yeah, so kind of some trends we see going on right now. There's a lot of fake domains out there. The number of domains registered about COVID and COVID-19 went through the roof exponentially. I mean, like 5,000%, all of these different things that are going out there. So do not believe what is sent to you in an email. By the way, if the WHO, the World Health Organization, emails you and says, Jamie J, the WHO recommends you do this, now click this link here, that the WHO doesn't keep a database of everybody in the world and their email addresses. Come on, please. I tell you, half of this stuff could be solved if we just stopped, took a breath, and realized we're not storming the beaches at Normandy here. You don't have to click on that link right away. What they get you is with that sense of urgency. They get you to immediately click on that link, because they create a false sense of urgency. Oh, you have to do it. This is important. This is urgent. There's only 3 slots left. So that's one trend we're seeing, especially on that. If you're a small business, here's the other thing I would do too. You got to be very careful about what you allow access to. One of the things I would do is, if you need people to have access to things like WordPress or some other applications where they have to get in, but you want to make sure that you don't give away the keys to the kingdom, look at something like OnePass or LastPass. These are ways, they're used for businesses, but they're ways that I can actually manage the passwords. I can give you access without actually giving you the password. So you don't know the password. You can't change the password. You have the quote password. It's masked. You can't see it. You can't copy it out. So there are some ways that you can actually share things like that with them. But here's what it used to be, Ronald Reagan said back in the 80s, trust but verify. Yeah, not anymore. It's verify first, then trust. And you want to make sure that you don't allow them to have access to credit card information, financial information, things like that. Figure out the minimum amount of access they need to do the job you want them to do, and give them only that minimum amount. Nothing more, nothing less, just the exact amount that they need. And don't just be lazy and say, well, hey, we'll figure this out later. Anytime you say we'll figure it out later, you never do. And most of the time you get burned by that.
So true. Thank you so much for sharing LastPass, OnePass. I use LastPass here, and it's a godsend. It definitely helps us out quite a bit. And I think
and real quickly too, Jamie, on that is that if you have you have to let somebody go for a reason. It's very easy to go and shut off all their access to everything. Or something happens, you have a breach. Actually, one last thing: ransomware. This is one of the biggest things that's going on right now. The best way to avoid ransomware is don't click on the frickin' link, okay? The second best way to recover from ransomware is make sure you got good backups. Backup everything you have. I use Dropbox and I use Google Drive for a lot of stuff. If anything happens to my computers, I can nuke them, reformat them, come back up, because all of my important data is somewhere else that's being managed by Dropbox or Google. And you have to have faith in something. So I have faith that I know I can get into those and I can recover my data. Including pictures. I back up my pictures to the cloud, to iCloud. So everything I have that's important that I want to have access to is backed up. If something happened and I got ransomware, which I wouldn't, and I knock on wood. But I just, I haven't had a virus years because I run Macs, but I just haven't had any issues because I just don't feel like I got to click on anything. But ransomware is the biggest scourge to small businesses right now. So you back up, don't click on links, and be suspicious when you get an email that says, you may have already won $1 million if you'll just send me your information, reply to this email. Delete, delete, delete. Don't reply to them. If you reply to them, they'll know it's a good address. Exactly. That stuff, yeah.
They're starting to get a little more savvy too. Like they sent something to they got a hold of an email of one of the staff members here, and they said, "Hey, Rachel, this is Jamie. Please purchase this gift card for me and then send it to this address."
Business, and that's another one too that happens to small. Most of the time, it's called business email compromise. They do not break into your system. They do not compromise your system. What they do is they impersonate somebody important in your organization.
It was a totally different email, but it said info. Yeah. It said info at our main website. But it would.
And what they'll do, think about this. Here, try this, Jamie. Take a word, scramble 2 or 3 letters inside that word, like Microsoft. One of the biggest misspellings of Microsoft for a long time was Microsoft, S-F-O-T instead of S-O-F-T. But when you look at it, you see it, your mind puts it in order, and you say Microsoft. So these people will use domains. They'll put a 0 in there instead of an O for like Whole Foods. It'll be whole F00ds.com. You'll look at it and say, oh, that's from wholefoods.com. It's got to be legit. Take a breath, take your time, and realize, by the way, email is still the #1 method of attack by nation states, by China, by Russia, by North Korea, by Iran. #1 way they compromise systems.
And you can see they'll have like Word docs. Do not open up Word docs or anything like that.
Ben actually hit something too. Yeah, if you're not sure, go in and actually don't look at what's on there, because you'll see an email, and I could say from the White House. You gotta look behind that name, because I can make my email say anything. I can make my email say Jamie J, even though it's from my domain. But you got to click on that and look behind it and really read. Bank of America, I see these all the time. It'll come from something.ru. No, sorry, that's Russia, China. I'm sorry. You just got to be very careful.
So that's basically it. What I'm getting out of this is hardwire in, right? I would say hardwired in. Be careful, be cognizant, and then like you said, #1 is cybersecurity prevention step: encrypt everything. #2, keep business and personal information separate. So working on a laptop for business, the kids aren't on that.
No. Or if you have an iPad for business or anything else, that you just don't hand your phone to your kid. That's also because guess what'll happen? This is a huge target now, especially Androids are a huge target for banking malware and Trojans. If your kid's on there and they get into your email or they do something and they click the link accidentally because they don't know any better, you've just infected not only your devices and maybe your organization. So keep these things separate.
Love that. And then the third, freepasswordcourse.com. And I still use your tips to this day. Both Sarah and I use them.
All right. Well, but it's easy, man, because we're teaching you a process where you don't have to remember all this. And I've made a bunch of other free stuff on there too, Jamie. Some of it's maybe a little out of date, but some of it's pretty good, like my 5-week, cyber warrior training course. So basically, if you really want to get in depth and understand these stuffs, a couple courses about how to secure Facebook, how to secure Instagram, things like that. So just simple stuff. Spend 10 minutes now, 15 minutes now, so you don't spend 100 hours later.
So how do people get in touch with you?
You can send your credit card details and expiration date. No. Hey, look, it's morganwright.us. I'm on Twitter at @morganwright_US. And just Google me. If you can't find me, you're not trying hard enough. I'm out there. So right there, I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Any of those things, Twitter. Facebook, I'm a little bit more, I don't do business on Facebook or anything like that. I mean, with what you do from a business standpoint, that's one thing, but me, I don't conduct business over Facebook. So if I get unknown people reaching out to me on Facebook, your chances of me friending you are pretty close to 0.
Yeah. Well, so I can't thank you enough, Morgan, for stopping by today. What is one thing you would love to leave us with? Besides, your clothing style is unbelievable and it's fantastic.
Tommy,
yes. I love Tommy Bahama. Yeah, relax. What's one thing that you'd like to leave us with, and kind of challenge people that are watching either now or on the replay?
It's a good question. I wish you would have asked me that so I could think about it. It just Look, I will tell you, this is just kind of you got to do something to keep yourself sane during this times. You have to, it's too easy to get stuck in, to get into a rut and stuff. So, I mean, I've got a Peloton. I know you've got one. You and I have talked about this, getting that exercising your mind. I will show you, I showed you one of the things I do to exercise my mind. This is actually, this is a cold case I'm working. Actually just had a breakthrough on the case. We now can change this from undetermined to a homicide. We're actually going to get this case filed. It's somebody somebody had made them out to have committed suicide when they actually didn't, and they're Catholic. So Catholic, it's a venial sin to commit suicide. So their family has been tortured by this. And so I do that simply because I'm still a cop at heart. You cut me, I bleed blue. You can see my stuff on the wall back here. Stuff like that. It's just, I think you have to do something that you feel good about, that you feel true about, and figure out a way to give back. This is my way of giving back. I'm not on the job anymore. I don't carry a badge, I don't have the authority to arrest anybody, but I don't need it. I can use this, and a little bit of ingenuity and a little bit of hard work. And just, I think during these times, you just got to keep your mind agile, stay physically fit. And look, don't sweat the small stuff. This is tough. We'll all get through it. We're going to come up with ways to figure out. I'm seeing people do stuff now that they Rahm Emanuel, a politician, said one time, never let a serious crisis go to waste. We have a serious crisis right now, but how are you reinventing yourself? How are you doing things differently? You and I, our buddy Christopher Lockhead, a lot of times we're, listening to him talk about, do what everybody else isn't doing. Everybody else wants to do the same standard stuff. At Sentinel One, I'm working with them on different webinars, different ideas. We're doing a coffee thing. We're doing a wine tasting thing, a cooking thing, just stuff to break up the mold. We're doing a lot of stuff, Center for Digital Government, with video now, where we never did before. And it's getting better engagement, But just, this is your opportunity to reinvent yourself, reinvent what it is you do. I had to do that too, because half of my income went away like that when this thing all shut down. I had 42 trips lined up this year, keynote speaking for the center. And it's like, there are 42 trips. I get paid for each trip. And guess what? 42 paychecks just went away. Yeah. So what do? You can whine and cry, or you can say, okay,
you can our pants and security awareness.
Yeah. Just let's get back to business, folks. Get back to business.
Awesome. Morgan, thank you so much.
Man. I love this stuff. Let's do it again.
I know. It's just freaking amazing. I've known you for several years now, and I've learned so much from you, but every time I talk to you, I learn something else new. And I'm like, oh crap, I remember he said that. I didn't do anything. It takes 5 minutes. I need to get off my freaking horse.
And one thing you learned is I got a bigger Tommy Bahama collection than you do.
And that's saying something. I was pretty proud of that, man. Well, that's fantastic. Well, can you hold on one quick second? One quick second, and I'll wrap here. Thank you, Morgan. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for the great questions today. My name is Jamie J. I'm the CEO and founder of Bottleneck Virtual Assistants. And the reason why I brought Morgan on today is because he can definitely help stop the bottleneck in your business. That bottleneck very well may be cyber threats, cybersecurity, hacks into your business. You got to take this stuff seriously and know that when you're working with somebody in a remote level, hold them to the same accountability that you're holding yourself, or even better. So have some kind of a system in place. And better yet, I would highly encourage you to go get this, freepasswordcourse.com. If you do anything today having to do with this, go to freepasswordcourse.com. I've used it for the last couple of years. My wife uses it. And believe it or not, guess what? We've never been hacked. None of our stuff has been broken into. So highly encourage you to do that. Morgan is the man. He is absolutely incredible. You can learn more about him by going to morganwright.us. And just want to say thank you so much. Remember, create your own ripple. Everybody have a fantastic day. Stay safe. Stay healthy.